South African? What is this? Where do you speak?
I've been asked to guest speak for UCLA master's program. It's a remote program designed for some master's students, and I get on and I talk about materials, surface materials, which Glass Pro is usually what I talk about.
Sure. And they invited you to do that as like an educational thing?
Yes. So it's good for us. It's first of all, it's exposure to new designers out in the world. I like to think of it as giving back also.
Sure.
Helping people out. And the woman who's running the program used to work for Gensler, so she was referred to me through the Gensler family.
Sure.
So
we had someone from Gensler on this podcast, man, probably like 30 episodes ago, and I'm going to space on his name. I could look it up, but he was their lead fenestration guy. Pretty sharp guy. I thought it was a good podcast. Just a different look at our industry, right? Different people view it different ways and the challenges he has. But what I thought was interesting there, it's a South African person that runs that program, and I was about to tell you before I hit record, it's just very coincidence. I have a bunch of South Africans in my life now. Somehow in North Central Florida, 3 years ago, we met, and they're now very good friends of ours. Their son joined our baseball team, our baseball league. And actually I think he was just randomly placed on our team at that point. So they showed up, we did a baseball season, got closer with them. Now it's one of my son's best friends. He's my assistant coach. He was actually here this morning. He comes and I have a garage gym and we work out. But their church, they say that it's not like a gathering of South Africans, but it's like a gathering of South Africans. So now we have another family that just moved here from South Africa, and their boy's on our baseball team. And he, unlike the other boy, he still has the accent.
Okay.
It was very interesting, not only just what a random country to have a bunch of friends from, but seeing this, I think he's 8 or 9, seeing this boy interact with American boys. And, we just talked about how challenging that must be for him. Like when I was 10, we moved from Massachusetts to Philadelphia, and like just to fit in as a new kid in school, right?
Yeah.
But then put on top, he's got this kind of, different accent and says different words. Like it just must be very challenging. So it's just an interesting dynamic we have.
How beautiful is that also? The exposure to different cultures and what you can give your kid with that kind of exposure. I love that.
You're a traveler. You're a big traveler. Have you been to South Africa?
I have not been to South Africa. It's definitely on the list. I am a big traveler. I've been really lucky so far to go a lot of places. So my old life, my old career, I traveled a lot for work, pretty much all over the world, which was pretty great. And then it also being, freelance in that world, I had a lot of time in between jobs. So I really made it a priority to go everywhere that I could.
And your previous career was in the entertainment industry, and I want to talk about that. But first, you're here representing Glass Pro and Rowe Fenestration. Do you work in both, or do you only work in one?
Yeah, technically I'm Rowe Fenestration, but I'm also Glass Pro. Rowe Fenestration is a manufacturer's rep firm that's been around for 15 plus years in Northern California, and we about 6 years ago expanded down to Southern California, and that's where I came in. And we have vendor partners, and Glass Pro is one of those long-term vendor partners, but I also have a unique relationship with Glass Pro, as I do mainly all of their architectural and design work in Los Angeles.
And I kind of asked that question knowing the answer because it's a family-owned company, so of course you have a little bit everywhere, right? You wear different caps. Having worked with my father before, I was the estimator, the project manager, the installer, the guy that went and got the money, the guy that went and got the coffee, the guy that went and got the screws, like whatever had to be done. So your experience working with family, pros and cons.
So yes, lots of hats. That is definitely, sometimes I'll call because my dad owns the company, and I'll call them and I'm like, okay, this is employee talking. Okay, this is your CFO talking. Okay, this is your kid talking. All right, I need a therapist. Like, you gotta address how we're gonna address the conversation. But I definitely, luckily, I really like my family.
That helps, right?
To hang out with them. It's been awesome. If you would have asked me 10 years ago if I'd be working for my dad and if I'd be selling stuff, I would have laughed in your face. But life evolves,
Yeah.
and I absolutely think it was the best move I could have made. It really, I learned so much more about my dad, and I work with my cousin as well. So it's just a different level. Like once you get onto that professional level and you learn about who they are in the business world and their reputation and what they've done, it's like a new level of respect. So I think it expanded like who we are as a family, really.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful for it. Of course, there's always things, but Scott, my dad, is also a really great boss because he'll like give you the tools that you need and he'll mentor you when you need it. And then he'll let you go off and run and do it and succeed. So he's not really a, minutia, tell me what to do every day kind of person. He trusts me to get it done, and it's awesome. Works well.
I think that's important, not just for a family-owned company, any company, right? Like anybody wants that leadership style, and maybe if it's not working, it's not necessarily always the leader. Maybe it's partly the employee too. Like the employee's got to play their part in that equation as well. Your dad, what did he do before Rowe Fenestration, or was that the start in the glazing industry?
Oh no, he's been in the industry for 50 years at this point. So he started in high school sweeping the floors at Viracon in Owatonna, Minnesota. So he started working there, got hooked up with a couple mentors, did the college thing, would always go back to Owatonna and work the summers, and decided that that's where he wanted to be. So I always tell the story, but it's like, he would see the sales guys come in, after they've been playing golf or doing whatever. And he's like, I want to do that. Like, what do they do? So, Jim Martineau was his mentor growing up and going through the business. And he's an icon in this business. And, still to this day, he's his mentor. It's awesome. That's one of the things I've learned from my dad and from this business specifically, is the mentorship and how important it is to have that give and take with the older generation, the upcoming generation, times evolve, times change, but we need that old school knowledge. We need that experience as we take it and move forward. And we have to learn from other people and how they got to where they're at. So
how can, maybe not just Rowe Fenestration, but how can manufacturers, how can glass shops do that better? Because I agree with you, right? You've got a lot of people with so much tribal knowledge that are on the precipice of retirement, and you have another generation that brings a lot of other skills, right? But maybe they don't know all that tribal knowledge. So how do you marry those two? What's the strategy there?
I mean, if we only knew, I'm sure we'd have $1 million. But I feel like mutual respect is really important. I feel like definitely as a younger person coming into this from a whole different industry, technology, efficiencies, getting things done. Like we are the millennial mindset, of more is better, do more, do faster, do it more efficiently. And the older generation is fostering those relationships. It's not punching it into the data, and it's not all about the data and the charts. It's about those relationships, and it's a bigger picture. So I think there is a meld of both. And I think mutual respect from both is really important. And that's the only way it's going to work. I think there are a lot of companies trying to evolve, and whether it's corporations or small family businesses, I feel like the turn is definitely happening, right? I mean, everybody talks about it in the industry. There's a mass retirement, a mass exit of the leaders that are going away and the new people coming in. So, and I think it's going to have to be an active partnership from both young and old, young, old and new, however you want to say it,
Sure.
to try and usher that in smoothly. But I think the mutual respect part is really important. And it's not all about the data on the paper. It's not all about that. So
yeah, I had read something that was every 7 people that are retiring from the construction industry, there is one new person entering the construction industry. So extrapolate that, 49 people retire, you only get 7 people. So that evolution that you're talking about, I think super important, right? Not only to try and retain that tribal knowledge, but how can we do more with less? And you see that on job sites. You see manipulators and power cups and the robot guy that does the embeds for the curtain wall. But that's going to have to extrapolate to manufacturing, to fabrication, to estimating, to project management.
Starting, it's the AI thing, it's the technology machinery thing. It's so many of those things I feel like some people are afraid of, and it's they're like, oh, they're going to take our jobs or whatever you want to say. But truly, those are tools that are just going to help us be more efficient. And it's how we use it and how we train the people coming up and putting value in those people. And I think that's something that's starting to get lost, unfortunately, right now. I feel like people don't invest, like companies don't invest in people in as much as they should, in my opinion.
I think that's a fair statement. I think, it probably depends, right? It probably varies, right? Every company is going to be different, but I think at scale, you got a company, 300, 400, 500, 600 employees, like it just is probably challenging.
Yeah.
But all that stuff you just mentioned is stuff that we're learning and stuff that maybe people can use to extrapolate that. I was just thinking, what are the other 6 people doing? If only 1 out of 7 is going into construction, what are the other 6 people doing?
They're on TikTok. I don't know.
I was gonna say at least one of them's got to be social media. We could say TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, whatever it is. And then I don't know what the other people are doing.
There is
Amazon.
Very large amount of people making money on that it can't last forever. I just don't see that being forever. They're gonna have to go somewhere when that.
Oh well, that'll evolve too, right? Like I don't know. I've obviously dabbled in it, right? I'm a podcast host. We make clips, so I'm at least adjacent to the social media career industry, whatever you want to call it. But I think it'll change, but I don't think it'll go away. It'll just be how people create content, how people consume content, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Your list, your line card for Rowe Fenestration. Maybe we'll play a little game here. I'm gonna guess what the anchor is, and you're probably gonna surprise me. You're probably gonna tell me it's somebody else. I'm gonna guess that it's Peerless.
Well, I suppose it depends on what territory you're talking about.
So are you just north? You're all of California.
So Rowe Fenestration, depending on the vendor line, we're Oregon, all of California, and Nevada.
Okay.
So I mainly am Southern California and Vegas.
Okay.
And then so Chris and Scott are outside sales up north, and that's my cousin and my dad, and they are pretty much north on up to Oregon and Reno.
So you don't have to open the curtains and show everything. We're going to say Peerless is one of the anchors at least, right?
Definitely an anchor. Yes.
All right. What's the surprise? What's the surprise company that I would not guess in here? Is it Bird Safe?
It's hard to say. I would say, Glass Pro has been our I want to say my dad has been partners with them for 30 years. It's probably close to, I think Glass Pro's been around for 38 years. So, they're definitely a key component of our business. I would say Aerolite is probably a surprising factor for you on that one.
Okay. Yeah. Aerolite. That's a well-known one. Maybe not my second or third guess, but I would have put them up there. So Glass Pro, and I'm just reading this from your website. You can expand on this if you'd like.
Okay.
Colored laminate glass, custom back paint, digitally printed glass, and magnetic glass for design and performance.
Yes.
Okay, so your website is very accurate.
Absolutely. So Glass Pro is local to Southern California, fabricator. They do all the fancy stuff. They also do all the regular stuff, heavy glass handrails, blah, 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 insulated units. They do a really good job with bird glass. That's especially on the East Coast right now. There's all kinds of code being put into place where it's going to be mandatory, and we're doing really well over there right now. But in the Portland coast and Northern California coast, it's all code there too as well. So it's definitely expanding. That's a big part of our business. But Glass Pro really does a good job at a lot. I have to talk about my favorite part because that's the part that I work on the most.
Sure.
The architectural and design stuff. I mainly do project work with them. And, it's all the fancy stuff that people look at and they go, well, how do you do that? And that's, and Glass Pro will get it done and make it look pretty. So
how long, have y'all had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14 lines? Have y'all had this many lines for a long time? Has it been kind of a stable group that you've had, or just some come, some go?
Yeah, I would say there's the hardcore select group, Alley Flam. We had I'm not looking at the list, so bear with me.
That's okay.
But we've had a lot of our vendor partners for decades.
Yeah.
Peerless is relatively new, but we had the window line before that for over a decade. So Scott really values those legacy relationships, and when we sign up with someone or, get into bed with someone, if you will, it's a long-term commitment. It's something that we want to be mutually beneficial between the two of us. We want to believe in the product. We want to believe in the team.
Yeah.
Those partnerships are not taken lightly. So it's not like, oh yeah, we'll do that. Oh yeah, we'll do that. No, it takes, a lot of time and effort gets put into that before we agree and we want to, and we want to make sure that it works for both of us, all of us.
I think that's probably the correct long-term solution. We've had some other independents on this podcast, and I obviously know some, right? I've worked in the industry since I was a teenager, so I think that's the correct long-term strategy, because I've also known some that do the opposite of what you said, right? They will take anyone and everyone, and even companies that may not be on their line cards, they know how to work a deal and make a deal and get paid for that deal. And listen, everybody's got to eat. You're hustling. I get it. But I think the long-term solution is what you're describing. So how do you guys kind of go to the table? Let's say you were considering a new line. Like what's kind of the thought process behind that?
It's essentially like a courting interview process. We need to have multiple conversations. You got to go look at the factory. You got to talk to the people. You got to have dinner with the owner. You got to know where they're coming from and what they want from us and what their target, goals are, and see if it aligns with ours. I feel like working with good people is really important, and that is something that we as a company really value. And I don't want to say we're the most how do I say it? Loyalty, when you make a commitment and you are out there doing the work and your boots on the street and you're seeding the clouds for jobs that probably aren't going to come around for 2 or 3 years because it's, being spec'd in this project. And then, when is it getting built? You want the commitment on both sides. And I think that part of that screening process and part of figuring out, if it's going to jive together, that's all important. Like, if you have a line for 2 years and you get it all spec'd everywhere and then you don't have it anymore, well, great. Now I have to go try and unspec those things.
Yeah. That's an awkward conversation, I suppose, to go back to that architect and, hey, by the way, I changed I changed the window line that I'm repping, so can we just
Yeah.
swap that in there? Now, you know, same concept though. A lot of those architects are probably going with you and Rowe fenestration more than they are with the actual window line.
I do think relationships are very important, and being a source of like a resource. Just like I need an automated window system, Kendall. Where do I go for that? Oh, well,
Yeah.
we just partnered with Jason Smith. At he was on your Glazier your
Yeah.
podcast,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So and I have a resource for that now. Like, so the idea of being the answer, even if I don't have something, I can direct you in the right way. I have resources. I know people. I go to the events all the time. I try to be in the know on kind of what's happening in the industry so that they do come to me with those questions, even if I can't help them. So that part's nice. The relationships, being in the right place at the right time is also important, which you don't really have a lot of control over. But yeah, the relationships are key to that part.
Yeah. I mean, some architects are going to go to a manufacturer's website and they're going to pull a specification, but I think a lot of architects would prefer, and I'm the same way. I'm very automated and technology leaning. Like I like to text message. I like to, shop on Amazon. I hate shopping on Amazon, but I do it because it's easy and convenient.
Well, efficiency, time versus money,
But there's certain things that I like to talk to a human being, right? And I think a lot of architects, maybe we're pulling I don't know, I can't think of a good example, but something simple off a website, and that's fine. But then we get into curtain walls or decorative glass, and they probably want to talk to a human being. So,
well, and that part with the decorative glass part, you're working with these designers who speak in very ambivalent, like illustrational terms. So you're trying to translate that into architectural glass. Like I want it to feel like it's moving. I want the open air of the, and then I take that and I'm like, well, you know what? And honestly, I think part of my skill in that side of things comes from my entertainment industry background, like working with creatives and directors and producers and trying to translate that into things you can actually produce. But
thank you for that segue, because I did want to come back to that. Did you work in the glazing fenestration industry and then go to the entertainment industry, or was it entertainment from day one?
Entertainment from day one. I was a theater art kid growing up, always performing, always media classes, doing that stuff. So I went straight to film school, graduated high school early, went to film school, graduated film school early, and then went right into the entertainment industry. I worked in television, I worked at the studios, then I did a reality TV stint for a while, did a couple independent movies, and then I moved into TV commercials, like big budget TV commercials. So did that
for all the, listen, we're just a bunch of glass industry people. The entertainment industry sounds like a very, very broad thing. You were filming, you were editing, you were acting. What part of that were you working on?
Depends on what stage we're talking about.
Okay.
But the TV section, I was an assistant director in the AD department. So scheduling, managing time and people, managing the set of the physical set on the day. And then when I moved into commercial world, I was mainly production supervisor. So then you're working with producers to manage budget, hiring, firing, managing people, making all the deals, the money part. So that's kind of where I ended. I was starting to produce commercials, and, I was, full disclosure, like I'd gotten divorced. My life was kind of crazy, and you work 100-hour weeks and you can't even make it to a dinner date or to come home to have groceries in the fridge, or you're just never home. You get a call on Thursday to leave on Sunday for 6 weeks, and you can't commit to going to a wedding. And like, there's so many elements that I felt like I was missing out on in that industry. While I was successful and it afforded me amazing opportunities, all over the experiences, I just feel like I was missing out on the life part. So, right as I was kind of looking to change my life, my dad was getting some pressure to expand his business to Southern California. And it took like 2 years of him pushing me to, or asking me if I'd be interested, or, oh, look at dangling the carrot, right? Until I'm interested. I think I attended 3 glass builds before I was actually in the industry, because he's like, come on down, see how fun it is. Come on, see what it's all about. So eventually he got me. And
he lured you in with the entertainment aspect. Glass build is like fun and fast and lots of things going on. He didn't lure you in with the daily grind.
That's true. Well, and all the people. Obviously, I'm a people person. I like to talk. I like to, go out to eat and host and entertain, and that's what he does in this business. So obviously, you sell stuff too. But
so am I correct here that you were more in the business aspects than like the creative aspects? Does that even make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yes, okay. That is where I thrived, is in the business.
So that transition probably slightly easier than if you were like a creative?
Yes, I would say so. I think it surprisingly transitioned very smoothly for me. There's a lot of similarities, and I think the biggest challenge it was timelines. So in production world or in commercial world, you from the time you get hired onto a job, the time you're done, say it's 3 or 4 weeks of job, you have a $3 million budget, and you hire and you get all the deals done, and you shoot the job, and then you wrap it up and you turn in your book to the production company with, this is our budget. We finalized. It has a pretty little bow on it. And then you're done with it forever. That was always very satisfying for me. And in this job, you start off with a list of 20 things that you have to do in the day, and you get through 15 of them, or as many as you can before people stop working. And then you have added 15 more things to that list. So there's never I'm done with this. Like, here's my pretty little bow. Yeah. I'm complete. And I think just for my own satisfaction, that was really hard for me. Because you're never done. There's always more to do, and there's never a pretty little bow, and the things are just ongoing forever. Construction schedules are years long. It's wild to me. I mean, it makes sense, but it was a big change.
I don't disagree with you. You could just, when a project is complete, right? You've got Glass Pro glass on a job, right? Go to that job, take some videos with your cell phone. That's it. You've finished a job. You've got some sort of completionist, whatever it is. Take photos, video, just walk the job. You have a completionist activity. That job is done. Tie a bow on it. But yeah, you're right. You've got 40 more other jobs to work on.
But yeah, and at that point, that's a whole other job to go take pictures and videos of all the jobs.
That is fair. I guess your territory is pretty large too. The states out there get very big. Yeah. All right, maybe that's not the best idea. So to people in the glass and fenestration industry, give us something that is we would have never guessed that's part of the entertainment industry, something unique to the entertainment industry that we wouldn't have even thought of.
It's kind of hard to explain, but the idea that there's pretty much every kind of job that there is in the entire world, everything, right? Whether you're a glazier or a welder or every different kind of job that there is also that same job within the industry. Because whether you're a carpenter or a this or that or whatever, medic, a school teacher, there's all of those jobs within the entertainment industry as well. So that part is always wild to me as far as thinking about.
Meaning that they only do that in the entertainment industry. They're only a school teacher in the entertainment industry for
teacher
for those people.
Yeah, for whatever job they're hired on for. So you can be a studio teacher, and I'm a producer, and say I have 2 kids that are under 18, one's 14, one's 8. They have to have X amount of school hours during the 8-hour day that they're there. And then that school teacher, that's their job.
So they're there like on the. I'm going to use all the wrong terms here. They're there on set, and they just have a teacher that's just there.
Yep. And that teacher can act as the kid's advocate as well, or guardian. It depends. There's all different rules, different states. But yeah, or there'll be, you know, an onset, like there's a food stylist.
Yeah.
Like, so if you're working on a food commercial, there's a food stylist that comes in to make all the food look the way it does, and they use glue and all kinds of crazy substances and paint to make these food things look delicious, and it's really just not food.
All right, listen, I watch TV, I watch movies, so I'm consuming from the entertainment industry. But I just want to throw this out and get your feedback. I'm not necessarily saying this is true or not. It's just a thought, right? Is there maybe a level of satisfaction in the construction industry that something is being built, that like a physical product, something is being built as opposed to just something that is made to be consumed? Is there any satisfaction there?
I would say so. I
mean, listen, I'm recording a podcast right now. I'm not creating a structure. I'm not really bettering our society. I like to think that we're helping our industry by either attracting people to it or having conversations to help people understand things. So like there's a value to me beyond just creating content. But I was just curious if you ever had that thought about like making a commercial versus like helping an architect build a building.
I guess I've never thought of it necessarily as like I'm building the building.
Right.
I'm providing a service, right? I'm providing a customer experience. Like you have to buy this product, whether it's a window or a louver or whatever. You got 5 or 10 options of where you can buy this from. I want you to buy it from me because I'm going to make your experience better, right? Like I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to tell you what you need. I'm going to tell you what you don't need. I look at it more of providing an experience. I guess I've never thought of my job as necessarily building anything.
Well, you're part of the team. You're part of it. You just like the guy on the site that he's just pushing a broom. I mean, he's part of the team, right? He's going to drive by that building the same way you're going to drive by that building, and you're going to say, "Hey, I worked on that building," and he's going to say, "Hey, I worked on that building." So I mean, like you're part of the team creating a structure.
That's true. I should consider that more.
Maybe that would help with your completionist, like
with my gold star chart.
Right. That's right. All right. So you want to sell your product, right? Like we all have to eat. That's kind of like I take that from Andrew Herring. Shout out to Andrew. That's always his shtick. But we are providing a service. You are providing a customer experience. You're helping that architect create that structure. What's maybe a strategy that you've found that works really well for you in either fostering that relationship with the architect or fine-tuning that customer experience? A strategy for a sales rep working with an architect?
I mean, communication. Don't be annoying. I do think knowing your stuff and admitting if you don't know it, don't make it up. You know, I feel like a lot of sales reps make that mistake and give wrong information. We can't know everything about everything. So I think having the integrity to say like, hey, I'm not really sure about that. Let me get that for you or find that answer for you, etc. But also doing what you're like doing. I'm messing it up. Doing what you say you're going to do. You know?
No, there's a ton of value in that. And I think I go out of my way. I go out of my way to set more than reasonable expectations. And if we're able to overachieve on those, that's great. But I go out of my way, and I tell my team all the time, like if we have to walk away from a sale because we're not comfortable with promising X, and you got to walk away because that's not a long-term investment.
And I think you have to keep your eye on the long term. You know, it's not about this one job. It's about the future and your relationship moving forward. I think the collaboration from the beginning and figuring out if it is mutually beneficial, if this is the right product, if this is the right fit, if it is, the right timing, it's all factors in, and there is no black and white on all of it.
And there's a lot of value sometimes too if you don't get the job, right? Number one is that client, architect, glazing contractor, whomever, they might see value in your transparency and honesty. And number two, the competitor might have lied about something to get the job, and then they're going to be over their head. And you're the guy that said, no, we can't do that.
Yeah, well, a lot of times, because we always try and figure out why we lose jobs, or if we're the high bidder or whatever, 99% of the time it's because it's not an apples to apples bid, right? So, I mean, all of our vendor partners are competitive, and they're big players in the industry. They know what they're doing. They're not like just throwing numbers at things. So when we get that information and we are able to have that back and forth with our trusted customers and whatever, of like, what did we do wrong here? What did you need? What did whatever? 99% of the time it's we're not apples to apples. So having enough time in the beginning of the bidding process to figure those things out and to have those conversations and say, well, there's 3 ways we can do this, We can do it the really conservative way, we can do the cheapest way, and then we can add things on. Like, what do we, how do you want to look at this? And then working with your customer to see how they want to bid it, how they want to present it to this GC, and just being a resource for them so they know what they're getting too. Like that's another huge piece.
Yeah. And you're kind of describing a scenario that we don't always get. It's great when we do, but the previous episode, we had the guys from Drafting Marketplace, Tyler and Brandon.
Yeah.
And, Brandon had a pretty good point about, I asked him about efficiency in construction, and he was talking about pre-con, and I think he's right. And it relates to what you're saying, is just there's, when we put a bid in as a manufacturer, like there's not a lot of volume to that. Like sometimes maybe it feels like there is, but when you look at the whole building, there's not a ton of volume. That GC has to take every trade. Every trade's going to have 4 or 5 bids, and they have to put that all together in, X amount of weeks. And I agree with you 100%. I don't think there's always time. And I think, to Brandon's point, I would love to see processes, and I don't know the answer to this, I'm not a smart enough person, but processes where things can be streamlined, things can, we're using smart documents or something to be able to sort that out in a faster amount of time and get where you want to be, apples to apples.
Yeah. I mean, but that's everybody's individual business, right?
Yeah.
So we'll bid 6 different customers on a job because they've all asked, but they've all asked within 3 weeks of each other. Like somebody asked 21 days ago, somebody asked today, and it bids tomorrow. So like, is it that we don't have enough time, or that people aren't given enough time in their jobs to do their job right to then get it to us in time? There's so many layers to it of, I don't want to be like, well, you just waited to the last minute, it's your fault, but sometimes it is.
Yeah.
No,
I find if you don't assert that, like, maybe you don't have to be mean about it, rub their nose in it, but if you don't assert, then I feel sometimes people try to make it your fault, your problem. And
always.
I think maybe years ago when I was a younger man, I was more appeasing. I wanted to appease everybody. I wanted to appease the GC, the glazing contractor, just jump over everything to try and make it happen. And now I think I'm I don't want to use the word mature, just older and grumpier maybe. You need to learn when boundaries need to be set, and just clear communication and transparency. It's just
boundaries and expectations are really important, and while we can perform miracles sometimes with how quickly we can turn things around, or how quickly we can expedite some kind of fabrication that shouldn't be able to be fabricated that quickly, it doesn't mean that that's the way we should operate. I love to save people. I would love to save people every day. That would be great. I would be wealthy, but that's not the way business operates. That's not conducive for all of us to constantly be, having the sirens blaring, going, "Oh, this is the end of the world." Like,
No,
are there really Hoover
you
emergencies?
you stress yourself out. I would be thinking about these things at night or in the morning, losing sleep of trying to resolve this problem. And I think sometimes you want to do that. Sometimes you want to go above and beyond to resolve a problem, but sometimes it's not possible. And if you take that on, it's too much stress.
I am guilty of that for sure.
Sure.
That is left over from entertainment world too. Of like, there's no in entertainment world, so you make everything happen. Sometimes it costs money, but you can fix everything in entertainment world. So it's
You alluded to off the top of the show, and also while talking about the entertainment industry, that you would be whisked away on a Sunday for 6 weeks somewhere, and that you had the opportunity to travel to all these places. Favorite place you've ever traveled to?
So that's a really hard question because there's so many places and they're favorites for different reasons. Um,
I'll allow two or three.
I've been really fortunate to travel a lot with work. But I would say I've done a lot of traveling through Asia. Vietnam is one of my favorites. This painting actually I bought off the street in Vietnam. Spent a few weeks there. Anyway, it was
what did you like about Vietnam?
the food, the people, the history. I learned a lot about the war and whatnot. It was incredibly sad, but it was just eye opening to see it from the other side. And the
I've heard, and I've been to Thailand. I've not been to Vietnam, but I've heard that Vietnam is actually very welcoming to like
Very
Western welcoming tourists, and I think a lot of people would assume that they're not.
I mean, you definitely get some looks when you say you're American. They don't expect Americans to travel there. At least at the time, that was I don't know, it's probably been 10 years since I've been there, but I loved it. It was gorgeous. I mean, it's like a jungle with huge cities in the middle of it.
Yeah, Thailand was very similar, like jungle everywhere, and then these kind of like massive, like overly busy cities. It was fun. And then there's like all the old, like the Buddhas and like the statues and the temples and like all this crazy old stuff.
You think about America and how old we are. Like, we're not that old. You look at these other countries and there's, I mean, thousands of years old. So it's fascinating. I love that part.
All right. So another favorite?
So I would say that was like more of my adventuring one. And then I would say Bali. I spent 3 weeks in Bali as well. It was only supposed to be 1 week and then I extended it. It was amazing. So
I've heard a lot of people getting American remote jobs and moving to Bali.
Lots of expats there for sure.
Yeah.
Lots of Australians.
Is it significantly cheaper cost of living? And then it's just like gorgeous, like is it beaches? Is it jungle? Is it
depends on where you are? There's both. Okay. So if you're up in the middle of Ubud, like it's jungles and waterfalls and hiking trails and little huts, and then if you're on the what is it, the north side? The opposite side of the party side, there's these beautiful black beaches and, you know, the snorkeling and all kinds of stuff. And then on the party side, it's like these epic restaurants and clubs and raves and bars and like just this wild nightlife. So it really kind of gives you everything.
I lived in Utah for a while, and there was a guy who worked as a ski instructor in the winter in Utah, and then he was a private chef on a cruise ship in Bali in the summer, and those were his two gigs, and he went back and forth between the two. Doesn't seem like a bad life.
That's definitely not a bad life.
Well, Kendal, greatly appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on the podcast. Had a great chat.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Honored to be here.